Hi, this video is for if you missed class on February 7th, Wednesday. This is class number 7. What you need to do is you need to write down the answers to these questions and submit them to me via email. This is email by this Friday at 5 o'clock if you want both on-time credit and quality credit. Every day late, that on time goes down by 1. Quality can always stay at 4, but this is to get your 4 points for the class period because you were not there today. And here we go. So don't worry about the Nigo and other. Okay, so we saw in our Mishnah, we saw this question of at what point does someone eat enough and drink enough to become a ben sorer umore. Now, first of all, I want to ask a question right off the bat, which we had a really interesting discussion about in class, is that the Mishnah makes a big assumption that when it talks about gluttonry, when it talks about eating a lot, it makes the assumption that that eating is actually eating what? It's question number 1. And it also makes an assumption that when it's talking about drinking, that drinking is drinking what? That's right. So it's eating meat and drinking wine. And the question is why? We had a couple different ideas in class. I wonder which one you like best. So one person said, well, actually, that was really common back then, uh, wine and meat as something of luxury. But then someone else said in class, wait a second, that was actually expensive. Not everyone could eat those things. Actually, it might be harder to get those items. So that was pretty neat because basically it said that, well, maybe actually by calling gluttony eating meat and by calling like drunkardness drinking wine, we're actually saying that making it harder to be a ben sorer umoreh because those things meat and wine were hard to find. What do you think is the answer for why they picked meat for gluttony, eating a lot, and why wine for drinking a lot? They could have picked other things. What's your idea? That's question number 3. Okay. The next piece was so this says, right, so this is how the Mishnah starts, right? At what point does someone eat enough and drink enough to become a Ben Surer Moreh? And the answer number 1 from which was given anonymous, we'll call that the anonymous Mishnah, is when he eats a tartimar of meat and drinks 1/2 a log of wine. Rabbi Yossi says only when he eats 1 pound of meat and drinks 1 log of wine. And the Gemara asks, a tartimar of meat, what does that mean? How much actually is that? And the Gemara answers, oh, we can learn that by looking at what Rav Yossi said. So what are they doing? What are they looking at? And what is actually the answer to what a tartimar of meat is? Learned by what Rav Yossi said. That's question number 4. And of course, Rav Yossi, when he talks about the log of wine, it doubles. So that must mean that actually the mana, or 1 pound, is a double of what the first answer is. So a tartamar of meat is how much? Question number 5. All right. One other piece that comes in the Mishnah, and this is a really interesting piece because I love the characteristic that it shows. So it says, Rav Kahana said in the name of Rav Huna, you don't become a Ben Sorer Moreh unless or until you've eaten uncooked meat and drank wine that was not diluted. So just so happens in ancient time, wine was very thick, and the way you would drink wine normally was you would pour water in it to thin it out a little bit. But then undiluted wine was this extra thick, like a sludge kind of thing. And they're saying, okay, you become a Ben Sorer Moreh, according to Rav Kahana in the name of Rav Huna. You become a Ben Sorer Moreh when you eat. The eating that we're talking about is eating uncooked food. The drinking that we're talking about is drinking undiluted wine. Now, what's the Pang going to say? What do you think the Pang might say to that? That's question number 6. Because remember, the Pong is going to come up with another idea, okay? And amazingly, the Pong is actually the exact opposite of what the Ping says, right? He says the way you become a Ben Sura Moreh is you eat raw meat and you drink basically raw wine. But then we have the Pong saying, but actually Rabba and Rav Yehuda both said that someone who eats raw meat and drinks raw wine does not become a Ben Surah Moreh. Okay, and what happens next? Basically, we're trying to find a way to make both the ping side and the pong side correct. So that's question number 7. Can you figure out a way that both the ping side and the pong side can be correct? And I'm going to put up this picture, which can be our hint. Okay, did you figure it out? And the answer is basically, well, Rav Kahuna said you don't become a Ben Surah Moreh until you've eaten uncooked meat, right? You have to eat uncooked meat. And Rava says it's not if you eat uncooked meat, you don't. And basically the compromise is we're going to say there's no contradiction, because when Rav Kahana said raw meat, he said he meant raw, but not 100% raw. Basically, if it was 100% raw, Rav Kahana would agree with Rav and Rav Yosef, but the raw they're talking about is the kind of raw, like kind of like what I would call this meat up here, right? So this meat up here, whereas whereas if we just look normally at the Mishnah, we would think that this is rare, but it's actually still cooked. So this would actually show that Rav Kahana, who says you have to eat raw meat, right, would say, oh, the meat that we're really talking about that's going to be, he didn't mean this up here. He meant meat that's kind of cooked, but not completely cooked. That this kind of eating would make you a Ben Surah Moreh. This kind of eating would never make you a Ben Surah Moreh. Okay, so basically, I think what's really important is, and right, and when Rev Kahana said diluted wine, he meant wine that was diluted, but not 100% diluted. So kind of diluted, kind of raw, kind of diluted. So in that way, Rav and Rav Yosef would be correct, and Rav Kahana would be correct. Okay, and again, this brings up a really important principle in the way that the Talmud often works. Is we have these two ideas, they seem to be contradictory, and the Talmud tries to kind of bring them together, basically saying, hey, both of these guys were thinking about Torah. Both of these guys were questioning kind of the right way to do things, and in a way, they're both right. And when we're wrong, we're just not kind of looking at it in the right way. We need to kind of change our perspective a little bit. All right, so I want to go to this little piece because I found it really fascinating, and we talked about this in class. This whole idea um, of eating an amount of food, like doing a sin, basically eating like if you did a sin that you would not be actually Ben Surah Moreh because, right? Why? And that's question number 8. Just as a right, because the Mishnah says, oh, that was not a sin between you and your parents. That was a sin between you and God. When we're talking about Ben Surah Moreh, we're talking about you and your parents. And I asked, and I want to ask just one more time here, and we talked about it in class. Like, is that really true? Can you actually go against God and not go against your parents, or can you go against your parents and then not be going against God? Like, how do you separate the two? Isn't there kind of like a hierarchy, God, parent, you? And when you go against God, that kind of includes your parents in some way? Tell me about that. And we had a great discussion. I'm sorry you guys weren't there. And now we're going to move on to our Mishnah. So we looked at all these cases. If he ganaved from his father, ganav meaning stole, if he stole from his father and ate in the public space of his father, not a ben Surah Moreh. If he ganav from others and ate in the reshut of others, did not become ben Surah Moreh. Ganaved from others, stole from others, ate in the public space of his father, does not. He only becomes a ben Surah Moreh if he steals from his father and eats in the public place of others. And we went over this kind of chart again, and we saw that basically the time when you were um, being being guilty of being a Ben Surah Moreh was when you had easy access to the meat or the money, and that you ate it in a place where you had limited fear. And what we did in class, which was kind of cool, was we tried to take this to another case of of a school case. When do you say she's guilty of cheating? And let's just decide that you've got all math is our subject, and your current grade in math is this. And we've got two ways the test is administered: proctoring in the testing center or take home exam. So And let's call it the need to cheat and the temptation to cheat. Need to cheat, temptation to cheat. Okay, so let's start with this one. This is question number 9. So math, the subject is math. My current grade is an 8. Is my need to teach high or low? And the test is proctored in the testing center. Is my temptation to teach to cheat high or low? Let's go. That's number 10. Number 11, right here. Current grade in class is A. My need to cheat, high or low. The test is administered take-home test, closed book exam. My need to cheat is high or low. My temptation, sorry. Math grade is a D, 13. My need to cheat is high or low. And then proctored in a testing center, temptation to cheat, high or low. And then 15, that's 15, sorry. 16 is my math current grade is D, need to cheat, high or low. And 17, temptation to cheat on a take-home close exam, high or low. So basically, if we're trying to parallel this with our Mishnah. So of all these cases, there's one case where the Mishnah if we use the ideas of the Mishnah would tell us this is the case where you're going to be guilty of cheating. Even if you cheated in every other case, we don't care about those cases at all. We only care about one case, which is that. And we're going to call this number, is that case number 1, case number 2, case number 3, case number 4. And of course, the answer here is case number 4. And why is that? That's your question number 19. Okay. And why is it? It's because your need is high to cheat, and the temptation is very high as well because there's no one around to kind of prove that you're a cheater. So we kind of talked about in class, like, why is it then? Why are they calling this this is the one that we're calling guilty of cheating, even though in the other cases they've also cheated and maybe even tried harder to cheat? But what is it about this case that is the one that we're going to say that's the case of cheating? That's the one we want to try to get rid of. That's question number 20. And the things that came up in class were like, oh, well, that is the case where, and I think Nathan said this, where you're going to have the most success, where cheating is going to happen and might happen again because you can't be caught and the benefit is great. And so this kind of helps us understand for when's the case where you would say that's the case where someone becomes a Ben Suri or Moreh. It's because that's the case where they're going to have the most success, where they're going to basically do it again, where the deterrent is really, really low. The other ones have kind of different deterrents already, right? The cases of A and A, you don't really need to do it, right? In the cases of D, you need to do it, but the deterrent is the proctor who's going to be judging you. So really, this is the case that basically we're saying we need to watch out for because it might happen over and over and over again. Now we're going to go to right. Okay, um, I think, right. So then we looked at this basically in class, and I wanted you to kind of take a look at this as well. So we looked at this page of Talmud where this piece of Ben Suri Moreh occurs. So this is a page of Talmud. Just want to show you here, circled number 1. That's actually, look at that. It says Ben Suri Moreh. That's the title of the 8th parak of this Masechet of this Talmud book called Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin is the name of the court, of the great court of 70. So this is about legal kind of matters. So here's the Ben Sorer Umoreh. Madniti means the Mishnah. So here we have the Mishnah right here. And Gemara is right here. So the Gemara, I often interchange the term Gemara for Talmud because those terms are a little bit interchangeable. Usually the Mishnah plus the Gemara plus the Talmud all together is considered the Talmud. This used to be called the Talmud, but they had to change the name of it to Gemara because studying Talmud was outlawed. So they said, "Oh, let's change the name," and they won't think it's something that they won't think it's the same thing. So here is our piece, and actually we're going to look at it but I first want to look at it in the English here. So let's read away. It's our last piece for the day. Here we go. The Gemara explains the reason for the various halachot taught in this Mishnah. If he stole that which belonged to his father and ate on his father's property, even though it is accessible to him and it is easy to steal, he's afraid his father will see him eating what he's stolen. Therefore, he will not be drawn after his action to further evil. If he stole that which belonged to others and ate in the property of others, even though he's not afraid of them, as they know him, as they need to know him or to watch over him, the theft is not easily accessible. It's performed on someone else's property, therefore he won't be drawn to additional sin. On all the more so if he stole that which belonged to others and ate at his father's property, in which case it's not acceptable to him, and he's also afraid of his father. Therefore, he's not liable unless he does the following: if he steals that which belongs to his father and eats on the property of others. In this case, it's easily accessible and he's not afraid. So there's concern that he's going to do this again and again and again. So actually, exactly what Nathan said, he will be drawn after it. And the word we're going to see is limshoch, to be drawn after that and to do it again and again and again. So something now we're learning about the Ben Serer Moreh is that the Ben Serer Moreh is someone who is habitual, who's making a habit of doing the wrong things. Not just doing the wrong thing once, but doing it over and over and over again. So your last question, question number 21, is going to be why is it in the case of the eating in your stealing from your father's house, eating in the house of others, would that be a case of Ben Sorer U Moreh? That's question number 21. You write down your answers, email them to me, and you will see your grade will change from the 0, which is just a placeholder at this point, to your correct grade. Best of luck, everyone.